News, back to production. What you say? Alpha Omega Stereo. Uwa, diho, sugiza. Uwa, diho, subutunzi. Uwa.
Welcome to another episode of Let's Get Real with 7 podcast. Today I have my guest, Christian Chamnliss. He's a Youth Alive President, and I'm excited for you guys to hear his testimony and his story. The main reason why I asked him to call me today was because he came to our church, Hope of Life International Church, and he gave a sermon, and I thought it was like one of the dopest sermons that I've heard, and just his all-around story is amazing, so I'm excited for him to share that with y'all. But before we begin, can you just share a little bit with the audience who you are, what do you do, and where you're from, and how did you end up, well, I guess I just said how you ended up here, but just share a little bit about yourself.
For sure, yeah, my name's Christian. Said that very eloquently. So that is my name, and I have an amazing wife named Brittany and 2 little kids, 2 little boys that are crazy. So I love my family, and I'm a nerd. On the side, I have a 90s toy collection. I wouldn't even say hobby, I would just say problem. Chamnliss plug _gold team _collective is my nerd Instagram. You can go follow it and see what toys I collect. But anyway, so I run a ministry in Arizona called Youth Alive, and Youth Alive is a program that's 41 years old actually, in August, and it started in the Midwest, and the whole idea is to reach every student in every school. And over time, Youth Alive has really been big in from Texas East, and as far as the West, it's happened, but not really been organizational. I never really had a leader. So I am the first Arizona Youth Alive director. Started in 2017, and so the main things we focus on, and pre-COVID, this is where we were. And we're looking forward with the future, figuring out what it looks like. But our things were we want to help students reach students, so empowering students to be leaders, and help every student launch a life-giving campus club on every school. So pre-COVID, we were on 56 campuses throughout the state, and then to do what's called a 7 project in every school, where we go into a school, do a school assembly, completely customizable to the school. Come back, do an evening rally where we preach the gospel, and see kids get saved and plugged into a local church. And then the 4th one is our mobilization of students, student leadership in what's called a Youth Alive One Day. So that's kind of who I am, and what I do. And I was a youth pastor first, and this is way better. So.
All right, so I want to get to the aspect of it in the sense of why you find the youth to be so important. How did you even get involved in that? But before that, I think your testimony, your story is a great segue into that. So for people that don't know, this hasn't always been you. You weren't the person to spread the gospel. You weren't the person to talk about Jesus. Could you share a little bit about your testimony from where you would like to start, wherever you want to start from as far back?
Sure.
And then we can kind of lead into more of the other questions.
Absolutely. So I was born in a Christian family, right? So my grandparents. So have you ever heard of an MK, missionary kid?
Oh yeah.
Or a PK,
right?
Pastor's kid. I'm an MGK. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Not Machine Gun Kelly, but a missionary grandkid.
Okay.
So bars. So my grandparents, they were missionaries to Africa for 65 years, something absurd like that. And so my family is all about ministry, all about everything. And so growing up, I'd always been told I have a call in my life, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. Just never really connected with it. Just wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. And after being told something so long, eventually around 7th grade, I kind of wanted to be like, I don't really care. And so by the time I could start making decisions for my own, I kind of I got in the wrong crowd, but it wasn't like I just ended up there. I willfully hung out with the wrong crowd. And
let me interrupt you. So Actually, so that's gonna come like later on. But like, why do you think that is? Because a lot of people who are raised in the Christian home or the Christian setting or whatever you want to call it, a lot of them stray away from that. Why do you think that? Like, why do you think that is?
Curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
shelteredness.
Mm-hmm.
I love my mom with all my heart, and she did the absolute best she could raising me. So no knock against a mom whatsoever, but I think sometimes ultra conservative parents,
Mm-hmm.
they make things taboo to think about, talk about, go, say, do.
Yeah.
And so by the time of when you're not exposed to the actual real world, by the time it gets there, there's this curiosity that can't be. It's kind of like when you tell a 2-year-old can't have candy. What do they want? Candy. What are they going to do? They're going to break the rules to try to get that candy when mom and dad's not looking. And yes, I'm speaking from experience. I literally told my 2-year-old on the way here, like, bro, if you're not nice to mom when I'm gone, you can't have any candy. He blew up in tears. It was like Law and Order. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I don't know. I think a lot of that happens where, like for instance, I think sex even
Mm-hmm.
is in a conservative Christian. It's one of those deals where it's like, no, it's taboo. You don't talk about that. This is kind of my experience. You don't talk about it. You don't. I thought the word sex was a bad word. I did legitimately. I was afraid to say it. And then, if the Christian household isn't going to talk about it, isn't going to affirm it, isn't going to be open about it, the school definitely is.
Yeah.
TV it definitely is. And so I mean, of course. 9-year-olds are freaking looking at porn and doing all this jazz because Christian mom and dad ain't addressing it, ain't talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's a rabbit trail. But basically, I don't know. I think a lot of those things have to do with it. For me, it was this is lame. I want to go have fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
now we can dive back in. So 7th grade, you started getting more curious and trying to.
Yeah. So I started hanging out with some dudes and. Smoking pot around 7th grade. One night got busted and ran from the cops for the first time at 13. Liddy. So that was fun. I was an idiot, right? And I was running, and I ran into my own backyard. I jumped the fence, ran into my own backyard, and looking back, I'm like, what dummy runs from the cops to his own house? Anyway, but yeah, I started getting involved in the wrong crowd, and as time slowly progressed on. So kind of something about me as like people get to know me, they'll realize I'm kind of a crazy, hyper ADD type of person. Like, so for instance, coffee. I cannot have enough of it. I'm an addictive coffee drinker. I'm a habitual type person. Mm-hmm. I'm naturally an addictive personality. I love adrenaline. I love thrills. I love going and doing things. And so there was an appeal to me about the druggy lifestyle. And something that God has to work out in me a lot is I am an attention hog. And I think the mixture of an addictive personality, thrill seeker, and attention seeker, that lends itself towards a party animal junkie because it checks all the boxes. I can go to a party, I can challenge everybody by being the most messed up person there is there, and then doing the most crazy thing in the entire world, and I get, not only do I get a substance high off of that, but I get like the social high off that, I get the adrenaline high off that. So of course, once that goes away, I got to do that again because like chilling sober ain't fun. So that was the journey of middle school through high school, trying to be the crazy guy, and eventually the party scene turned in more of like it's no longer fun anymore. It's like it's kind of sad. Yeah. Like, things are just happening.
How does it turn into sad? How does it go from all this thrill, all this joy, all this like, man, I'm getting all this attention, I'm doing all this crazy stuff to sad? What became sad about it?
No longer being able to really not wanting to function without it, or everything in your life wraps around it. I can't enjoy a moment without it. When you're in a bad place, when you're knocking back 18 beers in your bedroom by yourself, when no one's around, like you're just needing this substance. So when your life becomes, I guess I'd say this, when you become a full-blown junkie and it's not about the party anymore, it's just, this is who I am. Yeah, it's not fun. When you live that way, I think every addict will tell you that's a cycle of self-hatred at that point. Like the party scene is, it has its thing, but eventually it turns into the really dark side of it. And so got there for a while, started losing friends. Just people like, hey man, I don't really want to deal with that. Smoking weed and all that, drinking's cool, but you're kind of taking it a little too far. Going places. So like, and eventually one night I was at a party and overdosed on ecstasy at a party in front of, or I was in a nightclub, I should say, and sitting on a couch, overdosed, and thankfully survived.
So can you kind of like go back, because like when you gave the testimony in church, I think one of the biggest important part was like you were with a friend and you were hurt because you told them, hey, can you please take me to the hospital because I'm not feeling good, and they said no, I can't, and how that made you feel in that moment. So if you could break that down a little bit so you can get to the visualization for the people if you can.
I think when you're put in front of like, oh my goodness, I think I might legit die.
Right.
And this person so the person I was with, we had literally hung out every other day or every day. We were homies. And so when I asked her like, hey, I legit think I'm dying. Like, I need you to take me to the hospital. And this amazement of me, where like her being like, hey, I can't, sorry, like I'm not gonna do it. It was more of like, hey, I'm gonna push this off. I'm like, hey, you're okay. It took her a while to eventually be like, hey, like, no, like, so, it's messed up, man. It's a weird feeling. Like, if you don't care, why should I care? So what I said in church was, in that moment, like, that around that area of my life, I just didn't believe in Jesus at all. I thought it was a scam. I thought it was a joke. And I thought, why would anybody give their lives to this phony message? All Christianity is about money. That's all it is. And I would debate anybody and everybody to tell them why they're wrong. But in that moment, I started praying because I was like, all right, well, this is it. I'm going to die, and my friends ain't going to help me. So Jesus, if you're real, you need to come through. Obviously, he did. So I survived that night. And I made these promises like, hey, I'm literally not going to do this again. But then within the next 24 hours, I was back on a cocaine binge, staying up 24 hours, and cocaine, alcohol binge after that, and spiraled harder and harder and harder. And the drugs went from like fun party drugs like ecstasy and LSD to things like cocaine, dope, and it was a mess. It was a real mess. And then eventually what happened, my other friend overdosed. Okay, so what happened was, I had a friend, one of my best homies in the entire world. He, one night we were doing mushrooms, and he ate some that I think were just bad.
Right.
And he tripped super hard, and in mid-trip, he started feeling like he was being possessed by demons, right? So he got a Christian background too. So I think his Christian background influenced. So here's the deal. Something funny. Every time I did a psychedelic drug like LSD or mushrooms, I always, in the back of my mind, I was like, there's a part of this trip I will not allow my mind to go to, because I'm like, okay, when you have the knowledge of heaven and hell, when you're on those drugs, like, you can never let your mind go to a certain place because it'll get terrifying. Anyway, he started feeling like he's being possessed by demons, and in the middle of a trip, tried to kill himself. And so I'm in a living room with my best friend, like my legit best friend. I'm in a living room. He has a big butcher knife in his hand. He's shaking and rocking back and forth, saying that he is the devil. And I was tripping too, so I'm like, what the freaking heck is going on? It was terrifying. And so he's talking about how he's going to end it. And so I had to, while I'm tripping too, convince him not to kill himself. And so that was pretty traumatizing, to say the least. And so he bounced, and he checked himself into rehab, which, have you ever heard of Teen Challenge?
Yeah, I have.
So he checked himself into Teen Challenge, because after that, it was more of a, also like, I can't remember exactly how he ended up in Teen Challenge, because that wasn't his first choice. I think he got he was going to be facing either jail or, I can't remember exactly, but he ended up in Teen Challenge. Came back after a while, and he was like, I'm changed, I'm not going back. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should too. Maybe I should do this too. So I started thinking about it, and more things were aligning. I went to a dude's house one night, and he's making dope and hooking it up for me and my friend, and started talking about the dude that was with. So there's this dude, I can't remember his name, and his friend. Dude was cooking up the dope. His friend was right over here, and I guess his friend was ticking him off. And so me and my buddy over here, we were witnessing this dude is talking about how he's going to not just murder, but eat this guy alive. And I'm over here I don't want to be in this lifestyle anymore.
Right.
I'm because this situation, I'm more and more getting into this situation where I'm around people that literally. So when someone's on dope, you know what dope is?
No.
Meth, right?
Okay.
When someone's on dope, everything about them can change in a they're scary people. You know what I mean? And so more and more, I was getting into situations like this, and I'm like, man, I am literally on a daily basis putting my life, not just because of the substance I'm putting into my own body, but I'm literally putting myself in these situations on a daily basis. And I had another time when a friend of mine got way strung out, and one day called me. He's a guy who'd always call me hey, you want this? You want that? I got this. And one day he called me, and he wasn't offering me drugs this time. He was offering me girls. He's I got 3 girls. You want them? I'm like, no. What am I doing? You know what I mean? I don't want this. And then my homie came back from Teen Challenge. He was chill. And then, I don't want this. So I was sitting in the last party I went to. My sister, before she got, she was never on drugs. She just partied. She just drank. I was at her house one night, and got super plowed one night, and it was just alcohol that night, I think. And I remember just sitting after everybody had gone to sleep, and I'm still just kicking them back. I'm thinking well, he's out of this life. And Josh was my last line of defense. He's because we did everything together. If he leaves, everyone else around me is just acquaintance.
Right.
So if he bounces, I'm out. So I'm man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So I fell asleep, and the next day, at the time, I hope my sister, that's okay with me saying this. My sister's fiance at the time, she had a white Jeep, and they were gonna take me back to my mom's house the next day. So I'm waiting for my sister and fiance to come back, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat of my sister's fiance's Jeep, and looking out at snow in Oklahoma, and thinking to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I prayed right there. It was kind of one of those okay, God, hadn't prayed in a long time, so didn't really know what to do, and said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. Forgive me. Didn't really know how to end, so it's all right, end scene. So that was February 8th, 2009. February 8th, 2009, made that decision. And that's kind of when Drake, the story I shared with you, right around that time is when Drake kind of came around. And it was that was the last few months of high school.
Right.
And then Drake discipled me and kept me sober. So if it wouldn't have been for Drake, because how many people do you know, they're like, I'm quitting this, and then 5 days later they're right back. Or like, hey, I'm gonna get healthy.
Yeah.
5 days later they're back. Why? Because they don't have anybody to do it with them. They don't have any accountability. And so if it wouldn't have been for Drake, I literally think I would have gotten right back to drugs. Because I literally had a friend. We were sitting in class one day. He's like, hey man, you wanna go smoke after school? You wanna go do this, do that? I'm like, nah man, I'm clean now. I'm pretty sure I literally told him like I'm with Jesus now. And he literally said, hey, we'll be here for you when you come back. Which is kind of sad. Like think about this, like dealers, they're the most reliable people in the world. Like they will always be there when I needed them. And so anyway, so knowing that like I got people waiting for me, and I had another guy tell me like, you're not gonna stay sober. Like just come on, just stop playing this game. So that was kind of it. And if it wouldn't have been for Drake, I think I would have ended. I don't think I would have made it to college. I really don't. I think the trajectory my life was going, because after high school, one of my best friends, drank a bottle, got in a car, and never made it to his destination. Another friend of mine that we partied with thought he was being sold methadone. Turns out he was sold rat poison, and he never woke up. And so it was just like this. Another friend of mine, I wouldn't say friend, but someone we partied with and I bought drugs from, he had to run town because he ripped off a couple people too many. And so he had to leave the state for fear that he might, maybe not get murdered, but like he could get really jacked up. And so that was my crew, you know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of youth pastors, and no knock on youth pastors, like, yeah, I did drugs. I smoked weed. You know what I mean? And like, don't get me wrong, smoking weed, it's not good, right? But like, I think sometimes like the whole like, oh, I was in the party scene, or like, no, like this was harshness. And I look back, it was 12 years ago, and I think like who I am now and who I was then, like I had to be somebody in that world that I'm not. Like you don't show emotion in that world, or you get beat up, or you get jacked, you get people steal from you, all things, you know what I mean? And so if I would have stayed in that life, I would have either killed myself through substance, or I would have probably been in a situation. Without him, I wouldn't be here. And so usually on Sunday mornings, I don't go nearly as hard as I just went.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, did a lot of really messed up stuff. And then, so why I'm so passionate about students reaching students now. Here's the deal. I knew everything.
Right.
Did you grow up in church?
Yeah.
Did you ever fall away?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were away from Jesus, someone who was walking with Jesus, they couldn't tell you anything. You knew it all.
Yeah, that's very true.
Every church kid who falls away from Jesus, you can't tell them anything. They're the most annoying people in the world. They really are. I would rather talk to a junkie than a former church kid.
Right.
Because like, you might listen because you need help. You're just annoying. So like, I knew everything, right? Like you weren't going to tell me nothing. And so, I lost my train of thought there.
Why are you so passionate?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But so all that to say, there was no way on God's green earth, or in Arizona's case, brown earth, that I would have gone to church.
Right.
So no youth pastor was going to get access to me.
Okay.
No youth leader, no youth pastor was going to get access to me because I ain't going to go to church. Like, my mom would be like, hey, you're going to church. Like, okay, whatever, I'll go to church. I was literally freaking selling cocaine in the bathroom of my youth group.
Dang.
I was cutting lines of coke in the bathroom of my youth group. Kids were coming in and getting lines, or I was selling pills. I was literally get high with kids outside of the fence of my youth group, and then I would go in. So my mom's gonna let me go. I'm not gonna go sober. And I went to a mission. I went on a missions trip one year to Ireland, and I freaking pumped myself with pills before I got in the plane. Like, I'm not gonna go sober. I went to Ireland on a missions trip, not sober. Like, there was no chance a youth pastor or youth leader was gonna win me over. But a student on campus. Students will be in places that adults will never be able to be in again. Not just physically, because a student can be physically on campus like an adult can't be, right? That's true. But not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Students are going to be in places adults can never and will never be. Because no matter what type of stability and wisdom adult can bring, there is a level of pureness that an adult can never bring to a student. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I feel you.
Even now, like, a peer can bring something to me that a mentor can't. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I need my mentors. I need the people above me. I need those Pauls to my Timothy. I need that. But there is something about a Silas that it's you get me, you feel me, you're with me. And so for me to see a Christian live his life in the way that Drake did, so I'm so passionate about saying students reaching students. Like, I was never going to go to church. He brought church to me. And I want to help young people understand, and youth pastors understand, that the church is wherever you are. And it's not my youth pastor's job to preach the gospel. It's not. It's not. The youth pastor's job is to bring students in, train them, and send them out. And then students preach the gospel. So I'm very, very passionate about students reaching students because I'm here today. Don't get me wrong. I love the pastors in my life. So my home church pastor, Pastor Phil, he's amazing. But
well, in that case, because I wasn't going to touch too much on that because I wasn't sure how much time we had, but because of just that, you sharing that, could you kind of like summarize exactly how Drake impacted you? Because right now all we're hearing is like, oh, he impacted you, but could you kind of like walk with us a few steps and a few things that he showed and did that showed you like, oh man, this is why I want to follow Christ now? Like, could you kind of break that down a little bit more?
He was never amazed. He was never amazed by what I did. First,
right?
I think Christians can kind of be uptight around people who aren't saved or who are living like they're not saved. And I think the most annoying thing in the entire world is Christians a lot of time expect non-Christians to act like Christians. And lost people will act like lost people. Yeah. And you got to be okay with that. Like, Drake never asked me not to cuss. He never asked me not to, like, okay, I will say he asked me not to smoke in his car. But he didn't care if I smoked a cigarette outside and came. You know, he let me be me. You know what I mean? Jesus has come as you are, not as you should be. You know what I mean? Right. And so I think Drake legitimately saw me right where I was and saw the tar and saw me through it. Okay. And so I try very, very hard to not be amazed by what somebody has done. I try really hard. But it's really hard to do that. But yeah, he's just real. He let me be who I am. He let me ask questions to him, and he wasn't afraid to get real. Right. He wasn't afraid to ask real questions. And then, other than that, man, he was just present. He was just there. I think here's the deal. When we live our lives positioned and ready for a miracle every single day, do I think a miracle is going to come every day? No. Could it? Yes. But when Scripture talks about being ready in season and out, it's this idea of readiness. Drake would get in his car every morning and he'd pray every single day, 30 minutes before school started. He was ready in season and out. He was positioning himself for a miracle. Because eventually, you're going to be in the right place at the right time when somebody needs a miracle. And every single day, if you're positioning yourself for a miracle, you're going to be around somebody who's hit rock bottom. And I think weeks and every single... See, discipleship and walking with Jesus is an obedience, a long obedience in the same direction. It's this idea like, hey, this is where I'm going, and I'm going to walk this way every single day. It might be very unromantic, very uneventful, but eventually something's going to happen. And that's how Drake lived his life. And honestly, I talk about him like he's a god or a hero. But like, if you saw the kid, he's not. He's super I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a pastor now. I think he is. He was. I know for a fact he was. I don't know if he is anymore. But he's very unassuming. He's very short.
Right.
And frankly, he's a little nerdy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing about him would relate to the lifestyle I was living.
Mm-hmm.
But because of who he was and how he loved, didn't matter.
So I have this question. So I feel like a lot of Christians, because here's how I feel about this topic. So the question is almost like, what do you feel about the Christians who are always surrounding themselves with only other Christians? Like they don't really put themselves in situation. Because like there's a scripture I can't really like remember where it's at, but basically the paraphrasing is make sure you walk with the right people. Make sure you surround yourself with the people that are almost living the same way you're living, so that you don't get tempted to go astray.
Don't be unequally yoked.
Yeah, I think it was around that same scripture. But now I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, well, I think that is true when you're also first starting off with your walk with Christ, right? Because you do need to be able to make sure that you're 100% understanding of what you serve. So when you do go out there and surround yourself with other people that don't believe in what you believe in, they don't convince you to not believe in what you have been believing all along. So what is your perspective on that aspect of it? Like,
Yeah.
How do you keep the balance, and how do you know when? Oh yeah, like I'm whole enough to be able to put myself in certain situations that I probably wouldn't have been able to a year ago, a week ago, whatever.
Yeah. So when I tell students go reach lost people, I'm not saying go to a party and like be around stuff that you're tempted to. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not about that. I'm not saying be stupid. Like if you can go, like if you've never in your life ever struggled with it, and you can go to a party and you're safe, like maybe. But like, I'm not telling kids like, hey, you know what I mean? Like I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like you gotta have your inner circle,
Mm-hmm.
your core, and
Right.
those people have to be in the same level, same playing field as you.
Right.
I have my two best friends in Arizona. Neither one of them are currently in full-time ministry. They used to be, but neither one of them right now are currently in full-time ministry. I would call them my core, like they're my homies,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all three strong believers. Every Christian needs at least one of those people. They need that accountability. They need that friendship. But then I would say you're outside of that circle. You have your core and you have your crew.
Mm-hmm.
Your crew is the people that are just around you. I might even call them acquaintances
Mm-hmm.
or work friends,
Right.
or the people around you that you're friends with. You might hang out with, but you don't share every single detail about your lives. So like, I work with some incredibly great people.
Mm-hmm.
They're close to my core, but I mean, they're not quite in my core. One, because two of them are girls, and so I don't do that. But they're my crew. We're very close,
Mm-hmm.
but like I love them with all my heart, and they are also believers. But then you also have your crowd, and your crowd, I would say, is the people that you're speaking to, you're walking with, and I would say that your crowd, you can still do life with them, but they're not your crew and they're not your core.
Right.
My core keeps me moving. My crew, we go together, and my crowd is who I'm trying to reach. So I would really say, hey, you've got to have closest to you, your believing friends, and then everything around that. Like I think if you don't work in full-time ministry, your crew could easily be your mission field as well.
Yeah.
But because I work full-time ministry, my crew. I will say this, in all honesty, full disclosure, being in full-time ministry for almost 10 years, it makes it very difficult to be around lost people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just does.
Why? Why is that? Why?
Because everything I do.
Yeah. I just want to.
Yeah, full disclosure. Like
Yeah.
my wife's a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Like my two best friends are Christians. My three best friends outside of Arizona are Christians and in ministry. My crew, the people I work with, I love them with all my heart. They're Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in my office is a Christian. Majority of the places I go to, i.e. churches, are Christians.
Yeah.
So in my world, and I would say any full-time pastor, full-time ministry person, it is a challenge to get around lost people, but you got to do it. So I would say the people who they have a hard time getting around lost people, one, be in places where they are and make the most of every opportunity. So for instance, getting in a place like easiest place to share the gospel is at the dinner table. I don't know. One of the greatest places is like when you're at a restaurant. Waiter comes, waitress comes. You say, "Hey, pray for our food. Can I pray for you?" Oh yeah, sure. Sometimes you get ignored. A lot of the times you'll get ignored.
Right.
A lot of the times you get ignored. But one time we had this girl. She came and she like started to like choke up a little bit. And just, anyway, I don't take time on it. The story went. It was really great. But I'm just kind of moving forward. But did I answer your question there?
Yeah, you did.
Cool.
Oh, I thought you were gonna share the story. About
So anyway, I didn't want to keep going because I was like, man, I'm just talking so much. But
You're good.
we asked if we could pray for her, and she's like, yeah. And we were at Denny's, and so she started choking up. Like, how can I pray for you? Well, my husband lost his job. We lost our house, and we're actually staying in that hotel right there behind the Denny's. And she started tearing up, and she had 2 kids. And so we prayed for her. And I was with a youth pastor who's more also kind of like an executive pastor at the same time. I was with him. And so we prayed for her. And then my wife and I just felt God. I randomly had a $100 bill in my wallet. I felt God say, like, give that to her. So I tipped her $100. And then we left. And the youth pastor stayed there with her for a while, invited her to church. And she came to church that Sunday, accepted Christ. So, like, when you learn how to make the most of every opportunity, or like even being at the gym, like, hey, so-and-so, I'm working out by myself. Can you spot me for a second? Yeah. And right in that moment, there's an opportunity to create a conversation. Or even the things you wear. Walk track with me here a second. For our Youth Alive leaders, we got shirts that say, ask me about, coffee on my new shirt! My wife was little, said, don't do that. I did. Cool. I hate life. I always do that. Anyway, our new Youth Alive shirts say, ask me about Jesus on them.
Yeah.
And the goal would be students wear that. And it's an easy way to create a conversation.
Right.
So if you have a hard time getting around lost people, which I totally understand, learn how to make the most of opportunities.
Right.
Because they'll come. Yeah.
So to kind of wrap it up, man. So first of all, I thank you for everything that you shared, man. I really appreciate it. So the last, because you answered most of my questions that I had prepared throughout the thing. So the point of this podcast is to motivate young people to basically understand that wherever they're at, they're capable of getting out of it. It might take a little bit longer than it would take someone else, but to know that you are able to, you can make it. You can get out of this bottom that you feel like you will never be able to get out. And also, with this aspect of it, to be able to share the gospel, like you're saying, like pastors can't really be in positions that students are. So what is something that you can do to motivate young people to be encouraged? Like, man, like you might not be able to change everybody, but there's one person out there that you might be able to change it. So you just got to keep doing what you're doing and just make sure that you're, like you said, positioned for that moment. What's the advice that you would give the young kids out there?
A couple things. One, don't underestimate what you can do, and don't overestimate what you can do in 1 year, and underestimate what you can do in 5. So wherever you're going, wherever your dreams or ambitions are, I think we think, I'm going to do this in our microwave society. I'm going to do this in 1 year. If I can't, I'm out. But the longevity, sticking with it for a long period of time, that is where the victory comes. And then I would say, whatever that thing is for you, remember to always work like it depends on you. It's a freaking grind. Pray like it depends on God. Let's not forget the marriage between those two things. We think sometimes I'll pray for it so I don't have to hustle. No. Or I'm going to hustle and I'm going to forget about God. Don't do ministry for Him. Do ministry with Him. Don't do life for Him. Do life with Him. So work your booty off. So my ministry, my dream, my vision, I'm going to work hard, but I'm going to pray because ultimately He's the one who gets it all. Yeah. And then third, I would say, is when it comes to getting personally where you want to be. One, remember this: God wants you to be where God wants you more than you want to be where He wants you.
Can you say that again?
It's a tongue twister. Yeah. God wants you to be where He wants you more than you want to be where you want to be.
Okay.
So this idea that like I want to be in this place so bad, and if I feel like God has called me to this, I want to be there. Just know that like He wants you to be there more than you want to be there.
Yeah.
He's called you to it. He's going to get you there. But sometimes there's a gap. There's a gap period. For David, 15 is when he was called to be king.
Yeah.
30 is when he became king.
Yeah.
He knew the destiny, he knew the call, but there was a gap. Know that through all the wars and all the things that David went through, God wanted him to be here more than David wanted him to be there. And out of that came Jesus. So like, the call will come. Like, I still have things like, man, God, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. And then the last thing I would say is personally, you are as close to Jesus as you want to be.
Can you break that down a little bit more?
Yeah. So, I don't think Jesus is he's a gentleman. You know what I mean? I don't think Jesus is gonna like force himself on you. I think sometimes he shows up and he manifests himself to you, and there is this like specific generation or revelation of himself to people. I think that happens, but ultimately, I think how close you are to Jesus, how in love you are for Jesus, how passionate you are for Jesus, that's on you, because he already did the most extravagant demonstration of love there ever once was, which is the cross. Like, he showed himself, and Scripture says in Romans 1 that like nature shows his glory, that he is here for you. Like, and in the world we live in, especially today with live stream church everywhere, there's every opportunity to get close to Jesus. So you are as close to Jesus as you want to be. And so just like I'm as radically in love with my wife as I want to be, I can work to love. Millennials are stupid. Like, we forget that love is a choice.
Right.
Like, 4 years into marriage, I'm more in love with my wife now than I was in 2016 when we got married. Because I choose to every single day love her, pursue her, think of her. My marriage is as healthy as I want it to be. In the same way that I'm as close to Jesus as I want to be.
Right. All right, let's go. Okay, to wrap it up, man, I want to give you an opportunity to let the people know where they can go and follow the Youth Alive. Let them know where they can follow you if they want to be a part of Youth Alive and want to help speak word and life into their schools. This is an opportunity where they can find you on Instagram. How can they go about that website? So this is your chance to kind of...
Here you go. I'm going to give you a couple things. Number one, our Instagram is AZ Youth Alive. Hit it. You just should. Quality content. And then my personal is Chris Cham91. I post a lot of pictures of my kids. So if you like kids, you'll like that one. And then my nerd one, I'm just going to throw that out there. It's _goalteam_collective. Just do it. Why not? But if you want to get involved, if you want more information about Youth Alive, you can go to azag.org/youth.alive or /youth-alive. Or it's also in the link in our bio on our Instagram. So do it. Lit.
All right, man. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Everyone, thank you guys for tuning on. But as always, man, God loves you. I love you. God bless and stay safe. Thank y'all. Love y'all. Peace.